Hi, it's Dwyer. It is November 25th, 2024. Let's talk markets. But first, remember, nothing I say in this video should be construed as investment advice. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, let me just say, years ago, decades ago, when I was in college, I was very much a progressive, right? So my friends, we're all progressives, and we've kept in touch, right? Now I'm more of a libertarian than anything else. But I happen to be in a long-standing email group with people who, let's just say, think differently than I do in terms of the role of government, in terms of what's happening in the United States, right? Understand, I don't expect anyone here to agree with me. I'm not trying to convert anyone. The real goal of this video is to just give listeners real information. In the comment section of this video, I'm going to actually put links to your Federal Reserve's numbers on certain subject matter, so you can actually see how the Fed views things, right? I believe it's important for viewers to have several different ways to get information, right? You need a system where you can check out of mainstream media and actually look at the numbers yourself. My goal in this video is to provide you with those links so you yourself can look up the SOM rule, look up the numbers, look up the Case-Shiller real estate indices, right? So you can see what's actually happening. So in my group, and this online group is kind of engineer heavy, we'll call it, right? You have a guy who graduated from Michigan's business school. You have a guy who was an accountant for a big-time company in San Francisco. You have a guy I used to work with in a law firm. You have a guy who's a civil engineer who I went to high school with. In other words, these are longtime friends of mine, longtime friends. Now, they have a theory. The theory is that Trump lied, somehow fooled the American voter into believing that the economy was going to hell in a handbasket, somehow got the voters' eye off the ball, off the fact that Joe Biden was doing a masterful job as President of the United States, and somehow misled Latino males, black males, white women into voting for him. Right? So, of course, I'm hearing about how great the economy was and stuff like that. This group, too, and it's really fascinating, they somehow missed the first 8 innings of cryptocurrency. So they have the mindset that it's only wealthy people into crypto, right? Larry Fink, Elon Musk. It's only wealthy people into crypto, and they don't care about poor people. I wish I were making this up. They don't care about poor people. And that crypto is really some scheme by the very entrenched, the very wealthy, to opt out of the dollar and make a lot of money. Right? Now that's the narrative I've been hit with. Right? So let me just make a few points here. First on crypto. and I believe it's important. Right? People view crypto as some frontier type entity, some outlaw entity, some gimmick that Trump used to get votes from young people. Right? Kamala, of course, had no choice but to copy Trump because it was going to sway the election. Right? So there's no real merit to cryptocurrency. This is with my group. Right? Many of them have lived life the right way. We'll put the right way in quotes. I hope young people have their own views. Right? They had 9-to-5 jobs. They worked for years. Their idea of investing was buying a house, staying in a location for several years, making house payments, riding the house appreciation, right? Things like stocks, that's a foreign entity to them, right? So let me just say, with regard to cryptocurrency, just food for thought, as some kind of bastardized financial scam that's going on where people are trying to, siphon money away from the real economy, right, into some non-dividend paying digital asset abstraction that just relies on network effects. Let me just point out, you should know this, right? Tether, the stable coin. And understand it's just one coin of several stable coins, as anyone into crypto knows. Right? Tether is one of the biggest buyers internationally of U.S. bonds. Right? Tether, the stable coin, actually buys more U.S. bonds than the country of Germany. Right, folks? They're a huge player. Understand, they're not siphoning money away from the real economy party. Right? No, you need to understand that Tether is actually a creditor for the real economy party. Right? The party can't exist because the punch bowl is empty unless the people at the party can borrow money from outfits like Tether to keep it going. Right? So the entire conversation on crypto is backward. Right? I understand insiders were saying, oh, crypto, should we allow it? Right? The real question, and I'm serious about this, is whether crypto should allow you. Just understand, the world has figured out that cryptocurrency is a real player. That Bitcoin has already exceeded the market cap of silver. Right? You're talking about a Goliath. Here in the United States, we're talking about a Bitcoin reserve as if it's some kind of thing to be discussed and thought of, as if it's some radical idea, when in reality, right, if we don't have a Bitcoin reserve, we're going to lessen our relevancy on the world stage. So just understand, Trump's Commerce Secretary nominee, Larry Ludnick, just understand that he has been Tether's Wall Street banker for years. So what I want people to do, I'm not even going to give you the numbers. I want you to just look up Tether, U.S. bond holdings. Right? You can even throw in, on your AI search engine, how does Tether's bond holdings compare to Germany's U.S. bond holdings? Right, folks? You're going to be astonished. Right? The crypto conversation here in the United States is a little bit late. Crypto has already established itself as a major player in world economics. Right? To me, this is almost on par with the U.S. deciding now, gee, should we have a gold reserve? Right, folks? The answer is, of course. So I'm talking to my friends. Some of them are just learning. I'm not kidding. That you don't have to buy a full Bitcoin. I don't have to spend $96,000 to invest in Bitcoin. That Bitcoin is digital. And that I can actually buy $20 worth of Bitcoin, $15 worth of Bitcoin. Right now, in fairness to my group, many of the guys are in their 60s. These are older people, right? But I need for folks to understand, it doesn't matter if you went to the University of Michigan's business school. It doesn't matter if you have an advanced degree from Stanford University. You have an entire group of people out there totally clueless. Right? The idea is that Bitcoin is some novelty, not one of that crypto doesn't have a massive footprint. Folks, the footprint is massive. If you question it, then try to reconcile your views with the fact that Tether, as I make this video, is one of the biggest holders of U.S. bonds globally. Now let's talk about some other things, right? Just understand, and Michael Saylor talks about this. Bitcoin, and I mentioned Bitcoin, I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist, right? We're just mentioning a piece of the digital asset world, right? Bitcoin is perfect collateral. You can't go make Bitcoin. There are only 21 million Bitcoin that'll ever be made. If I'm a creditor and I'm lending you money and I need collateral that will protect my investment, collateral that I could repossess if you fail to pay the loan, I cannot do better than Bitcoin. Understand, it's a bull market for gold right now. Gold hasn't come close to appreciating like Bitcoin has. Just understand, too, that Bitcoin has certain advantages gold doesn't. Right? There are only going to be 21 million Bitcoin. With gold, every few years, there's some big new gold mine that's discovered. Understand, if I'm a creditor and some escrow company is holding Bitcoin, or better yet, some DeFi, digitally based ecosystem is holding the Bitcoin, so if the loan's not repaid, the Bitcoin automatically ends up in my wallet. That's the future, folks. Right? Just understand, I'm paying far less storage costs than I would if that transaction was to be facilitated with physical gold. Right? Just understand the utility of digital assets. If you own a house too, you know the carrying costs can be substantial. Right? Broken pipes, broken window, leaking pipes, termites. You understand you're going to have to pay money to keep that house going. Property taxes. With Bitcoin, it's a set it and forget it, isn't it? If I'm a creditor, I'm thinking to myself, okay, this guy's pledging his house as security for this loan. Do I want the house? Isn't there a possibility that the house has problems? That houses decrease in value due to rising unemployment and things like that. I'm not here to say Bitcoin doesn't have a history of volatility. But just understand, you hold Bitcoin as collateral, you're not dealing with leaking pipes, termites, broken windows, crime in the neighborhood, unemployment in the neighborhood. Right? Well, let's talk about stocks. Just understand the value of Bitcoin as loan collateral in this volatile economic time is going to increase over time versus other collateral alternatives. Let's talk about stocks. Folks, stocks are overpriced. Now, I don't want you to believe me. I don't. What I want you to do is to look at the Buffett indicator. The Buffett indicator is the total U.S. stock market value divided by the U.S.'s gross domestic product. Right? I'm going to refer you to a site. In fact, I'll put a link to this site in my description here of this video. It's currentmarketvaluation.com/models/Buffett-indicator. Right? If you go to the links on that site, you'll see some other current market valuation criteria. But I need for people to understand that the namesake of the Buffett indicator, Warren Buffett himself, is building a cash hoard. Right? He's selling blue chip stocks like Bank of America and Apple to build that cash hoard. Why would Buffett want a cash hoard? It's because he understands that the prices are elevated and will soon be on sale. What prices am I talking about? I'm talking about stock prices. Folks, they're going to drop. You can't have a Buffett indicator up around 200%. Just mentally, it doesn't make sense. How could the total U.S. stock market value be 200% of GDP? It doesn't make sense. Understand, some of the smartest money out there, Warren Buffett, for crying out loud, is building a cash hoard. Right? Don't look at a stock melt-up. Don't look at a blow-off top. Don't look at the first part of 1929 and think it's going to last forever. Recognize that stocks are overvalued. Don't blindly follow any pundit. Don't blindly follow me, please. Look up the Buffett indicator for yourself. Now let's talk about the SOM rule. This will sound wonkish, it's really not. What they're telling you is that when unemployment hits certain levels, you're almost certainly going to have a recession. So the SOM rule says that a recession is extremely likely when the 3-month moving average of the national unemployment rate rises by at least 0.5 percentage point above its lowest point during the previous 12 months. Now what I'm going to do is, in the description of this video, I'm going to give you the current real-time reading of the SOM rule from the Federal Reserve. You don't have to believe in my funky numbers. You don't have to believe in anyone's funky numbers. You're paying taxes. You're paying for the Federal Reserve. Right? I know they want to tell you it's independent. Yeah, right. Do you believe that? Just understand, I'll put up a chart of the Federal Reserve's numbers. And all you have to do is glance at that chart and understand we're moving in the wrong direction in terms of the SOM rule. We're flirting with a recession. Let me continue. You know, housing's overpriced. Now here again, I don't want you to believe my numbers. What I want you to do is to look at the Federal Reserve's numbers for the S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller U.S. National Home Price Index. Right, folks, here again, all you have to do is glance at the chart, and you understand that housing is overpriced. Right? You don't have to listen to some talking head. You can look at the chart yourself. Let's talk about the methodology, too. The Case-Shiller index looks at the repeated sale of a real estate property to help figure out how much housing inflation there is. In other words, the property sold for X, later the property sold for Y, later the property sold for Z. Then they look at the difference in price between X and Z, right? It's the same property. And then they realize, wow, this looks inflationary. Folks, when you glance at the chart, again, the link will be in the description section for this video. When you glance at the chart from the Fed's own database, you're going to realize that if housing reverts to the mean, it has a long way down to go. So the economy is fragile. So when I'm in an email group and I'm hearing a variation of the 1980s Reagan lied, people died slogan, right? Now it's Trump lied, defrauded the American people, won a second presidential election, right? Let's remember, Trump isn't a newbie at this, right? Let's remember he has a 4-year record. Understand where that got him. A greater share of the Latino male vote, a greater share of the African American male vote. Right? Trump won white women against a female Democratic candidate not only in 2016, but also in 2024. Right? Of course, there's this Trump is Hitler meme that's out there. I have no idea what that's about, and I'm being serious when I say that. Right? Just understand that the folks who want you to believe that the economy has been gangbusters during the Biden presidency are ignoring a lot of troubling data. Right, when we talk about people having a lot of spending money a few years ago, where did that spending money come from? Now, if it came from your business, if it came from your customers, if they love what you're doing and you're selling them goods and services and they say, wow, this rich guy's making it happen. Let me come back here and let me be a repeat customer because I'm getting value. Then great. If that's where the economy was, then it was a bull market. But if the reason people had extra money was because the government was handing out a lot of money, because of this COVID situation, right? And we now are learning, and here's a shocker, that these experimental vaccines weren't all good. Now we're learning that the employment discrimination that took place, where you said, hey, I've worked here for 10 years, I should have built up enough goodwill, I don't like the idea of being vaccinated with vaccines that just got developed, where there's some agreement where I can't sue for any adverse consequences to me, right? The people who got let go, now they're getting money. Right now we're slowly realizing that it was ridiculous to mandate vaccines. Right now, RFK is actually part of Team Trump, isn't he? Right? So let me just say, my friends somehow are confusing money from the government during an alleged pandemic, right, with a bull market, with the middle of the 1980s or the middle of the 1990s. Pick your choice. And somehow they're crediting the President of the United States during the time period when all this money was given out. Right? Well, folks, just understand that financial giveaway that wasn't based on, the production of goods and services and free trade. To quote Malcolm X, the chickens have come home to roost. Right? It's all that extra money that's leading to all this increased inequality, isn't it? Right? People use that extra money to bid up housing. Guess who was best suited financially to buy the bidded up houses? The wealthy. Right? Think it through. People use this extra money to bid up stocks. Folks, working class people weren't the ones in there taking advantage of bid up stocks. The wealthy were. Right? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. So what I want people to do is to take time looking through the description section of this video. The goal here is independent research. Right? Narrative-based conversations are great where people, for group unity purposes, want to identify with some political party. Hey, knock yourselves out with that. But at the end of the day, when I have a few dollars in my pocket and I'm thinking, how am I going to invest this? I don't need a narrative from a talking head on YouTube or on CNBC. What I actually need is to look at the charts. Right? I mean, let's just say you don't have to be an expert to look at the Federal Reserve's chart on the SOM rule. Right? It sounds complicated. You look at the chart, suddenly you see the trends. Right? Charts are visual. You can understand whether we're headed to a bull market, and I know some Ed Yardeni think we are, or whether it's perilous. Folks, in my opinion, it's perilous. Right? You can look at housing and you can ask yourself, is this going to last forever? Right? Where are we in the housing cycle? You can look at the Fed's own chart on Case-Shiller. Right? With regard to stocks, all I can say is if Warren Buffett is selling Apple to build a cash hoard, shouldn't you be concerned? If he's selling Bank of America to build a cash hoard, shouldn't you be concerned? So forgive me. I've heard countless people talk about how happy days are here again. Right? You would think this was the late 1920s. Folks seem oblivious to the fact that the stock market was basically flat from the mid-30s to the early 50s. Right? Folks, you're looking at several years, in my eyes, of the market cumulatively. Not every stock, certainly some AI stocks, some semiconductor stocks, some nuclear stocks are going to thrive and do well, right? Certainly if you're in Bitcoin, MicroStrategy, if you believe in Bitcoin, could be extremely well positioned to explode. I myself hold some MicroStrategy. I myself hold some MSTX. It's one of my best holdings. It's a leveraged ETF, single stock ETF on MicroStrategy. I'm not here suggesting, not in the slightest, that every stock is going to be flat for several years. But if you're an index investor, if you're betting on the whole market, then I think you need to expect very limited upside for several years. Right, folks? The whole market is overvalued. That's what the Buffett indicator tells us. It's overvalued. This bubble's going to pop, then it's going to take several years for the whole market to get back to the levels where it is today. I suspect that a lot of voters, right, the 40% of African American males under 40 who voted for Donald Trump, and I'm not saying, we'll find out if Trump's going to be effective this time around. The first time, he was just spending money like a drunken sailor, right? But understand, the people looking for change understood that change was necessary, right? That COVID pandemic giveaway that made everyone feel wealthy, right, folks, that money's running out, right? If you're in the housing market and, you're in places like Hawaii and California, and you're looking at your income, and then you're looking at the price of homes, and you're thinking to yourself, wow, that's 70% of my income. And you're talking to friends, and they're saying, look, at these rates, is it even worth it to buy a house? Then you find out that people renting in the neighborhood, the same neighborhood, are paying substantially less than you would be paying as a homeowner. Then you'll realize, you know what? This might be unsustainable. You don't even need to know if it's unsustainable. If it might be unsustainable, that uncertainty alone on a group level is going to tip mortgage rates. You understand that, don't you? So be afraid. Be very afraid, right? I think we're having a blow off top right now. I would not be surprised if housing drops by 20% over a 3-month period, right? I don't have the timing. The 3 months could easily be the next 3 months. It could be the 3 months after that. It could be the 3 months after that. The market is always on its own timing. But let's not delude ourselves into overlooking the bubbles around us. Housing bubble, the stock bubble, right? Just look at the Fed's own data. Some of those charts I'll have links to in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.